calling your phone, why you not hitting me back? Please just pick up, don't wanna go tit for tat. Arguing on versus this then this that. Killing my vibe, now I'm writing this rap. This is not another love song, girl, you got me at me sprung.
Happy Thursday, Ronnie Walker. How's it going?
Happy Thursday, Yasheka, and happy Thursday to everyone else tuning in from all over the world. So good to see you all again.
Absolutely. It has been a while. We
Too
have
damn
been,
long, too damn long.
yeah, I know, right? Living summer. That's what we've been doing, living summer. And so before we get started, I want to properly introduce ourselves for those who are viewing us for the first time. And before I do that, make sure that you allow StreamYard access to you. So if you leave a comment, I can respond and we can see who it's coming from. And I'm monitoring the comments, so bear with me. So I'm talking, I'm hosting, and I'm monitoring. So I got a lot of jobs going on right now. And so again, I am Yasheka Foster, I'm just a whole bunch of things regarding dating and women. All right. And my handsome co-host, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. My name is Ronnie Walker, Master Coach of Exceptional Dating Relationships and Sex, here representing Dating Discussions Live and datingdiscussionspodcast.com.
All right. So we listen, like I said before we did our introductions, the summer has been a doozy. How has the, so as we wrap up to the end, and how I know that we're wrapping up to the end of summer, it's time for my daughter to go back to school, my 8-year-old. And I am fortunate to have had her away for the whole summer. And I was able to tour the world during that time. And also, while I was doing that, I was learning, I was growing, I was just doing all the things that I didn't know that I needed to do. But now it's time for her to go back to school. So I had to hurry up and bring her back on Monday. Today is Thursday, it's just Monday. And that Monday evening, as we're driving home, because she had all this stuff that she's accumulated over the summertime, I was like, wait a minute, I need to go school shopping because I still hadn't went school shopping for her. And trust me, she ate 3 meals a day while she was in my hometown. Okay. So she can't fit anything she was fitting before. So we run through the mall, get her something. I had to get me something too. You know, I mean, that was the first stop, let's just be honest, but it was mainly for her. And then we were running around doing that. And then today I look up and I say, wait a minute, child, we got to meet the teachers tomorrow where you're supposed to drop off the school supplies. We didn't even get the school supplies. So we got to do some running around today. And then she was like, we're going to get my school supplies. We're going to get my school supplies. And then finally we get to Walmart to get the school supplies. So we are ready for tomorrow at 10 o'clock when it's time to meet the teachers. And the way I feel about teachers, and since we've been in COVID, listen, those teachers could tell me, well, I'm going to be absent for a couple of days because I'm having car problems. I am willing to rent her a car for however long she needs. Okay. If she need me to pay a couple of car notes, I would do it for her. Anything just to keep her at the school. Okay. And I know I speak for a lot of the moms, but I'm an old mom, you know, and so this is a new adventure for the both of us. And so for me, that's what my summer's been about. And so now she's back and some friends invited me out and it's like, well, maybe I'm trying to do that 1 week bonding with her before she goes back to school. So I'm like, no, I'm not going to go out. So that's how my summer's been. I mean, that's how my summer has pretty much been. So what have you been up to all summer now that we're coming to an end of it?
Well, unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to see the world this way, but although I did get a chance to speak to people traveling the world, and it's so apropos when we talk about this subject regarding dating. I've been, oh my goodness, really deep diving and speaking to people about that. But it has been a year of unexpected work that I've had to encounter and pivot in terms of taking care of family and all of that, and so it has grown me in so many different ways. And if there's something that if you listen to me and follow me at any time, I'm always talking about change is inevitable, change is constant, and you just don't get to choose what that change may be. So just in that space and speaking to so many people, so many different places and their experiences and the interpretations of those experiences, as well as mine, in terms of, I consider myself a very, very patient person. However, there are things that has, presented itself that has really, really stretched my patience. And so I'm proud of me in that way. So I'm going to pat myself on the back on that. And just also just the support that I've gotten concerning that. So it's something that I've spoken about for years. For many of you who don't know, one of the things that I did prior to the space that I'm in terms of dating, relationship, whatever, was deal with insurance and financial coaching. So we talked about long-term care, proper life insurance, proper investments and things of this nature. And through that, you learn about families and getting older and the parents that are getting older. You learn about how that affects relationships, how that affects dating. That plays a big part of that. So it's just interesting that when you try to think that sometimes you're the only one dealing with that, you just have to reflect and say, what, there are others who are dealing with that as well. And so it has been a journey of deep diving and reconnecting and sharpening some of the skills that I've accomplished over the years, and how I'm going to process all that's going through as I move into my latter years in life. So I'm grateful. I say that I'm grateful that I'm in pretty good health, for a man who's in his 50s. My knees are not creaking, my elbows and everything. I can still, I guess, cut a rug if now I'm really dating myself. But I'm healthy. My blood pressure is great. The checkup, I'm really great, and that's leading into why men should take care of themselves mentally and physically, especially if you're looking to take care of family and you're in this dating space. That's so key, because that's really, really a big part of the conditions when we talk about a mindset of dating. So, yeah, it's been a great summer in that I've grown. I can honestly say I've grown. I've learned some things about myself that um, I thought would come later on in life. But then again, that's the beauty of life. It's just that lessons come to you at times, and from people that care about you, that reach out to you, and really share words of support and things of where they see you are and where they could see you going. And so I've really, really taken a lot of that to heart this summer. So really, just for me to sum it up, it's just been a year of really being grateful, continue to be grateful to um, being grateful to those people who've reached out to me and just shared their thoughts and support for me. So that's been my summer so far. So, but I still plan on seeing the rest of the reel before. I've got some great things planned up between now and the end of the year, God willing. And that's it.
I hope I was listening to you, and I was having some technical issues, and so I have myself logged on downstairs. But I
Okay.
was picking up the gist of it because I was trying to hear you on my phone as well. That's why I was looking kind of confused and scatterbrained. And I did hear you talk about, where you are and how your summer was in terms of family and where you are and things like that. And I believe that that is one of the things that we all should just really be grateful for, because to be able to be in a position to see about, our loved ones or healthy enough and things like that. And so as we look at those people, because I know I look at, members of my family as they go into that later years in their lives, that generation, because now that my grandmother transitioned in 2017, she was the last of her generation in my family. And so now it's in my mother's generation, right? Which is, which my generation is next. And so for me, earlier this year, we lost one of my uncles just that fast from that generation. We had lost three before, but this was different. You know what I mean? Because it was like we were all older now. And so I look at that and I say, okay, what can we do to make sure that people are just meeting people where they are in terms of relationships, so that no one has to go about this thing alone. You know what I mean? And so I think that as we see those family members in our, that's single or in between relationships, or just going through a divorce recently or something like that, it has to really make us think about our own lives in that way. While we still got those, like mom and them used to say, them good years left,
Yeah.
You know, I used to hear once upon a time my uncles and them say, a woman is old when she's off the calendar, because no matter what, there's no more than 31 days in a calendar. So therefore, once a woman surpassed the calendar, she's considered all, she's past her good years. And I remember
Wow.
as a young woman. And I remember at one point thinking it, well, dang it, okay, I'm past my 30s now. I'm off the calendar. I'm 32 now. Oh shit, I'm getting old. And so looking at that from that perspective, and looking at me now going into my 50s in less than 6 months, I'm like, wow, if I only thought that, if I had only known that 31, or excuse me, 32 was still young, would it had clicked differently for me? Would I have done some things differently? Maybe I wouldn't have wasted time or made decisions that wasn't proper. You understand what I'm saying? So maybe if I had a thought more about 31 being like still young, and you got time to, you don't have to. I'm not saying you have to rush, and I'm not saying you take your time, but there's like a just right in the middle of that, right?
Hmm.
I mean, it's just amazing. Really is amazing, because I remember going into my 32nd year. I was in my second marriage, and I remember that year being a tumultuous year for us. I remember that being a tumultuous year for us. So I just wonder if, now that I'm connecting the dots, if maybe my thought process of the way I saw things, because I remember before we divorced, I remember around that time considering divorcing him then. And then something went on with me where I was like, you know what, she can know, do it a little bit more, give it time, right? Because I didn't want to turn around and then have another son that wasn't being raised in the household with his father, like my first son, right? Because his father and I divorced, shortly about a year after he was born, we separated. And so I thought about that. So when I connect the dots on my life and I look at it from that perspective, I'm like, was that something that I did? Like what I have thought life differently. You know what I mean? Because it ended up being a divorce. And I'm not saying that it would have turned out either way. I'm just saying,
Right.
when you look
Mhm.
at it from that, different perspective of it, right? It's like, okay, if I had a divorced him at 32, when I thought about it, the year that I was officially off the calendar, right? Instead of us divorcing at 38, 39, that was 6 or 7 more years of there in my life, right, that I could never get back. And I'm not saying that someone else would have came behind him and me quickly, or anything like that, especially having 2 children now from 2 separate marriages. But it just makes me wonder, would I have gotten the message that I have now and the clarity that I have now, would I have sped it up 6 years? You understand what
Mhm.
I'm saying?
Mhm.
And
Okay.
so, granted, nothing happens that's not already predetermined. So it all was, it happened the way it was supposed to happen. All things come when they're supposed to come. But I just wonder if how my mindset would have been. And then on top of that, if I passed up, if I went back those 6 years, because now I would be 6 years earlier, right? In that 6 years, would I have passed up the person that I wouldn't have passed up? You understand what I'm saying? Because I know that in those 6 years, there was a lot that changed. There was a lot that happened, and I walked away from it feeling some kind of way about a lot of things. And so those 6 years, I'm wondering if I had got to where I'm at now in clarity and understanding, would I have saw the person that was meant for me at that time, as opposed to him getting away and me having to wait. In other words, because you look at life differently. The things that I would have, checked the blame, like, nope, 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 nope. You know what I mean? Doesn't really matter at this point in your life as they did when they were young, when you were younger.
Mhm.
It could have been something about, if he wasn't making a certain amount of money, if he hadn't been in his job a certain amount of time, if he had, this, just different things that I may have done differently. I don't know. We can never know. I'll never know. But
Right.
it's
Right.
definitely a different way to look at things.
It is. Yeah, they say hindsight is always 2020, and that so no, it's something when you go back into the what ifs in the past and would you have made a different decision? So no, that's an interesting take on that. There really, really is. Oh well, let me give a quick shout. I see Jay. Jay, what's going on? What's going on? I want to give you a shout and recognize you and thank you for tuning in. Definitely want to thank you for that.
Yeah, Jay. Yeah, we love Jay, but as we go through that though, Ronnie, and we think about some of the things that we've learned this summer in regards to dating, right? Um, what are some of the things that, like, what if you could pick out one thing that you felt like you've known it, but it's always that, because everything has a season, right? Everything has a season, you know. It's one of those things where this year it might be, all the men who are this way, or all the women who are this way, or 5 years ago it was Nicki Minaj booties. Not necessarily, it's not Nicki Minaj booties no more. You know what I'm saying? So when you think about that, right? So everything have seasons. So for summer of 2022, what was the thing that you saw that stuck out the most in terms of dating?
Wow, that's a good question. I believe that things that have stuck out to me, if there was one common thing, is that if, let me see if I can more phrase this, just because we're in a different date, time chronologically, does not mean that everything from the past has to be uprooted and untangled, or things. There are things that just work and has stood the test of time, and there are things that's just not going to change. And I think so many people in the dating space, men and women, and I don't want to do anything to pick it on them, but as I talk to the men, it's they don't want the men to change. They want to change, but they want the men to, well, put it this way, they want to embrace, they hate double standards, except the ones that benefit them. So when we talk about traditional, it's like anything that we talk about that has happened for our parents, grandparents, whatever in the past. Everything is antiquated, and it should be changed. And I'm calling BS on a lot of that. You know, even as I talk about on some of the podcasts, when we talk about the way men and women date are different, and women are fighting me on this. They really, more so than ever, are trying to date like men. And I'm like, you can't. It's a fool's errand. You're going to end up wasting your time. And when I say time, I mean years. So when we come out with recent articles of men being lonely, and things of this, not as, no. And see, I've also learned that we have to be really careful when we read certain things, the stats, because how it pertains to greater America and as it pertains to Black America, it is different. As much as people try to make it the same, it's not. Just in the way as we as Black men and women navigate life in itself. So there are things that, ladies and gentlemen, are not going to change. They're not going to change. And they shouldn't change if you want success in the dating space. So there's a way that I believe women can effectively date, and there's a way that men can effectively date and continue to date. And give you another example, Yasheka. I'm seeing more and more reels and the show where you've got women proposing to men. And some people are embracing that because, well, Ron, times have changed. And I'm going, but each time I see this, the man is like, oh, hell no. No, get up. That's not your space. And we can fight back and forth on the gender roles and that's all out. No, an intentional man wants to lead, and he wants to vet, he wants to qualify himself as well to her as he is qualifying her to him. But what he is going to stand firm on, call it outdated, traditional, old school, whatever, a man wants to be the one to get on the knee and propose to the woman he wants to spend the rest of his life with. And this is something that, yes, some women are still holding true to that. Thank God there are, and speaking up about that. But, it was a long answer, Yasheka, but there are certain things that just are going to stand the test of time. And I think far too many people are wasting their time trying to change it. And I'm telling you, it's just, You may, as in anything, you're going to find some exceptions, but for the most part, mm-mm. Men and women are different, and they're not going to change. And no matter how you try to make more men into women, and it's not going to happen. Intentional men are going to be intentional men, and they're going to stick into what they feel their role as a man is, their purpose, and that being secure in their masculinity. That's what I got from this, among other things. But what did you get, Yasheka?
You know, I've noticed the rise, and I want to address two things you said. I noticed the rise in the shows where the women are taking the lead. And I think that what happens in that process is that the signals are mixed. And what I mean by that is she's believing that she is, for lack of a better word, because I don't know no other word, she's in charge of the relationship, right? And then he's looking at it as, no, because if you've listened to me, you would have seen or heard that I don't want you to be in charge of this relationship. And so that is another subject in itself, but I think that that's what happens when we see that. You know what I mean? Because a person wants a certain type of person until they get that person and realize that, well, no, I don't want this person.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So that is the story of so many people's lives. And I'm not just talking about women, I'm talking about men as well.
Oh, yeah.
And it goes back to what Jay said about a lot of divorces and breakups happened in 2020. Because if nothing else, we saw death up close and personal the way we've never seen it before in our lifetime. And when everybody got to where they were comfortable, they started saying, hold up, this ain't what I want. I want more. Because at first it was just like, well, let's just make it to the end. You know what I mean? Like, we'll be good to the end. You know, with nothing else, we friends.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and we got these kids. So if nothing else, so people were just like not doing much else because they were comfortable until we saw death up close and personal. And it shook our freaking souls. And so that's why a lot of people did divorce. But a lot of people married that wouldn't have never married had we did.
I was just going to say that. That's true.
You understand what I'm saying?
That's
like
true.
People looking at people the second time like, well, wait a minute now. Did you have that beard on before? You know what I'm saying? They looking at them a lot different. Be like, you sure look different with your haircut. I mean, a whole bunch of shit didn't change. You know what I'm saying? Things that you would have scratched people off before that didn't matter. Like I said, just a couple of months ago or a couple of years ago, let's keep it honest. Dudes love chicks with these Nicki Minaj behinds until they was sitting on them too long. And then they looked up and said, well, wait a minute, maybe I don't want that ass no more. I mean, so everybody saw some things that they thought they wanted that they didn't want, and they realized they needed something else. And so that's what happened. But like I said, people married that should be married, and divorces happen that should have happened.
Absolutely. Yeah. And speaking to Jay's point, a lot of divorces and breakup happened in 2022. This led a lot to now when we in terms of dating. So people, we're talking about relationship, we're talking about dating, we're talking about both, because what the pandemic did, it did a number of things, and it tested the boundaries and standards of people that were in relationships and marriages. Because it was easy to navigate the nonsense you knew, because like I said, at the very least, listen, I know where he's at, I know where she's at, and, working later, whatever. And so now you had couples spending time together that they weren't used to. And so certain things that you were able to tolerate, you were not able to tolerate. And that, to your point in terms of the booties, I said the same. I've been saying this to years to me. I said, gentlemen, be careful what you ask her when you're talking about, oh, I like her. She, she's got that little fire and that spicy. I said, listen, brothers, that will get old real quick. Real quick. If you're talking about now, you want to leave the relationship, because you're going to find that spiciness a pain in your ass, because you're going to wonder like, hold on, what? And then she's looking at you like, well, no, that was one of the endearing parts that you liked about me. But now, before pandemic, pre-pandemic, you only had to deal with that maybe 1 hour out of the day. Now you're dealing with this hours upon hours because you can't go nowhere. And so these are those things that happen. So I in the men's groups that I talk about that, there are so many men that really, just to your point, that says, you know what? I thought I wanted this. then and I was okay with that for a good 2-3 years. But Ronnie, when you're dealing with this, hour after hour, and then you try to go into separate rooms, and then you just can't get out of the house, then what you thought was endearing is now, it tests your patience in ways that and then there are those two who really put off the couples coaching and therapy that they needed. And they realized that if they were going to survive, and when I say survive, meaning either you're going to work through this or you're going to come to a conclusion where you mutually say, you know what, we've run our course, or as some would say the season, then we need to address this. So there's so much of that. And then of course the death, now in that, many people don't know, very few people know that I lost my father a little over a year ago to COVID, to a man who's married to my mother, which would have been 61 years this year, so that was, pivotal, when and speaking to my mother over this past year and year and a half, where and just talking about marriage and the things that I didn't know in terms of my father asking, to almost 3 times, because he had to get himself together. He was still out there, and he loved her, but she still didn't feel comfortable in that space. So certain things he had to change about himself. And so, to being the man that he was at the time, a man who served his country, worked hard, from where we grew up in the streets of Harlem, um, and then in the South Bronx, and until today. And I learned a lot from him, and I still do a lot. I do credit my work ethic to my father in that, to the point where even when I talked about earlier about the support, where people will call and say, "Ron, you okay? I know you work. You really need to take some time for yourself." And I love them for that, reaching out. But that was just something that, again, with my father, in terms of how he dealt with the relationships, as long as he made sure the bills was paid and food's on the table, this is his way of showing his love to his wife and my mother, and seeing it. And that was what she asked for, and that's what she wanted. But make no mistake about it, then I got to hear some of the challenges that they did have throughout their marriages and the debates. And so that's one thing for those that are in their 80s. But then again, we're talking about divorces and breakups for couples in the 20s, 30s, and 40s, where you still have many more years of life to live. And now you're back into this dating market where everybody who doesn't know what's going to happen the next day, from the economy to their job. And so now they're trying to navigate this and still trying to believe that there's someone out there for them. So it's a lot. It's a lot, but still optimistic, still very optimistic about it.
Yeah. Wow. This is it's amazing how they say, life just come full circle and everything. Just everything. When you look at, like, when we were talking about the um like when Jay said about the flat booty with the brain, I'm sure that there was a point in his life when he would have never thought that way. Just like we think we want something until we get it and realize that um, you know,
Hmm.
uh, it's yeah, this ain't what I want for different reasons. I had someone to say, I had an experience where someone was telling me something about a situation where um, they were talking to someone about something about relate. There was something that happened with, they had been talking or something like that, and they were pretty much discussing with them how their last marriage ended because the person that they married wasn't who they thought, or wasn't who they pretended to be. And so they more or less said something along the lines of, um, you know, I thought this person was this boss players person doing this, doing that, and then that wasn't who they was indeed. And so it ended up being where So she understood that. She understood the message of what he was saying or whatever. But then when she showed up to be this person, then it was too much for him. And so it's one of those things where I hear these conversations all the time, even when I talk to women, just about when they say, okay, this is what I want, but then when I get it, it's too much. And I think the main one for that is I always see it being from, I would say, a man's perspective, right? Because here I've heard conversations with men where they talk about what they thought she was, and then when they married her, they thought she was going to be something else. And then when I hear it from the women, it was like, he won't move quick enough to get us to the next level, right? As if they didn't know who they married. Like, why do y'all think that once you get married, this person is going to be different? You know what I mean? They're not going to be different. They are the same person that they're going to be. They showed you who they were. But then they'll still turn around and invest this time and energy in the situation. And then some of them make it to the altar thinking that something was going to be different about this person. You know what I mean? And then you have the flip side of that, where the ones that say, I want this person, but then when they get that person, they realize it's too much. So then in the marriage, the two egos start to collide.
Yes.
You understand?
Yes.
I want my spouse to be this way, but then when it came that way, now that other spouse might get a little bit special attention, a little bit more than you do, whereas that you're used to getting the most of attention, and then all of a sudden they're rising a little bit, and then you're like, hold up, and there's this right here, and then before you know it, the egos collide. So it's like, okay, listen, people, if you understand who you are, right? If you truly understand who you are, and that means some internal work, some being honest about yourself. I mean, all those things. If you really, truly about who you are, you will understand what you need. If you need a person that's a little bit more submissive, then say that. If you need a man that's a little bit more this way, then say that. Stop thinking that something's going to be different. That's not what is going to be different. If women don't want to, like, I know women got this thing where they say, well, I'm not gonna, somewhere in a relationship they start talking about, well, I'm celibate, right? You can't make him be celibate with you and then say, well, if you, like, what are we doing? Say that it. Man, it's a whole thing. When I tell you it's a whole thing, it's a whole thing. I'm like, say what you mean and mean what you say. Period. That's it.
Yes, and yes. And yes, did I say yes? Yeah. What am I sorry? and see, listen, ladies and gentlemen, this is why I purposely use the word intentional. If you see me in the reel, if I'm wearing a hat that says results, if tonight I'm wearing a sport coat, sometimes you don't see me, all of this is intentional. Even so, what Yasheka said, I cannot tell you. We get so caught up into these trendy words, or when someone doesn't want to do something. For instance, I'll get just to your point, the word submissive. To some, they really get it. Now, we're talking two different people. We're talking people who are really more on the biblical sense, and then the world sense. And it's these spaces where we have to deal with not saying that, because now it's been so demonized. And I'm saying, gentlemen, if this is the type of woman that you're looking for, then damn it, say it. But it's one thing to say it, then it's another thing to explain what you mean by that. Because I can ask 5 different men what submission means, and it's 5 different definitions. I said, so if you're not going to define, be intentional in what you're asking for and being very clear, then you're going to end up with someone that you're not happy with. And there's no one to blame but you, gentlemen. That's you, all you. So if you're not really taking the time and taking your eyes off her butt and everything else, or trying to figure out how you're going to break her celibacy journey, which I know a lot of men we talked about that same thing too, and really describe who you are looking for. because this is who you are as a man and what satisfy you, then you're going to have chaos in this dating world. And I find too many men and women using words and not really explaining what that means to them. Something like, submission, I'll use another word, support. What does support look like for you? What does it mean? What does that person have to do so that you feel supported? And if you're not explaining that, and then she supports you in a way that then you can't blame her. This is what support seems to her. What is it for you? And if you're not explaining these things, so yes, oh boy, it's just a whole nother story.
And speaking from my own personal experience, I remember when and I use this example often about my second marriage. I remember thinking to myself, and I married my second husband when I was still in my 20s, but I knew enough about some things to understand enough about life. I remember thinking he had this habit when he would come home from work. He was one of the people, even if it was lunch break or in the evening time, he would come home and instantly get out of his clothes and get in the bed. And he would put his clothes on the side of the bed, right? And so I got to the point where I'm like, why do you always put your clothes on the side of the bed? Because depending on the way our room was set up, I may have to go on his side of the bed.
Uh-oh, you got a little lapse there.
To the bathroom. Depending on if it's right next to the bathroom. So I remember thinking to myself in terms of when we were due to get married, I remember thinking to myself, he's not going to change putting his clothes on the side of the bed. So is this something that I'm going to be okay with forever? You understand what I'm saying? I remember asking myself that because I knew he wasn't going to change, because I knew from my first relationship that you can't make a person change. A person only going to change when they want to change. And so that was enough for me to learn that lesson going into my second marriage, right? Because I knew, and sure as shit, he continued to do the same thing. And I got to the point where I didn't say anything to him else about it because I knew that was his thing. You know what I mean? And I mean, he made a point one day. He said, "Well, I don't never leave it there overnight or whatever." And I was like, "You know what? You're right." But I was just curious. Okay, but why do you do it? He's like, "Cousin, in case I got to jump up and jump in my clothes." He said, "If I'm done." And so that was his concept behind it. And so once we talked about it or whatever, like right well into when we first got married, it was just like I knew it going into it that he was going to forever do it, but I never had asked him why until I thought to ask him why. You know what I mean? And I was going to have to be okay with it. But those are just some of the things that I learned from that. Now, granted, I didn't take all the bad that happened in my first relationship and turn into my second relationship. For example, my first husband took a lot of money from me, right? Stole a lot of money from me on the end of our marriage. Right? The money that was going to help me buy a house for my son, for the family and everything when I got back to the States. Well, when I married my second husband, I was not going to hold him accountable for what my first husband did. And so one of the first things that I said we will do is that we will have a joint bank account. I said, you can still save your money off to the side, and we save our money my money off to the side, and then we have a pot for the kids. But when it comes to the whole bills and paying everything, because I paid all the bills, including his credit card bills. So I'm not about to say, well, your total this month is, $1,476.50. So transfer that to my account. No, we're going to put it all in there together, pay everything that needs to be paid. And then out of this, we still support our kids. We still, do whatever needs to be done around the house or whatever. I'm not saying you can't say your little $200 or $300 on the side. I'm not saying that. Because everybody needs to feel a certain kind of way, no matter what. But it was an open and honest conversation. So that was one of the things that we never, ever, ever had an issue with in our relationship was money. We never, because I had learned from the first one. And so because I was so open about it and I was okay with it, he was more receptive to it. Like, well, dang, okay. Because in his first marriage, he was, he did his, things was different over there. So he never had anyone to approach it from that perspective and say, and I kid you not, we never argued about money. Never, because he always knew no matter what, I was making the best decisions for the family, and he still had his nest egg over here. He his credit score had got higher, and he hadn't paid off, just whatever. Everything was just good because he knew that no matter what, the priority was the family, and I wasn't going to screw our family. You know what I mean? So yeah. But I wanted to share that.
No, and that's good because I hope for those tuning in, you're listening. Okay, well, they're talking about dating. What does that have to do with it? They're talking about relationship and marriage, everything.
Mhm.
This is everything to do with dating because if you're not asking the questions or really observing the actions of each other, then what's going to happen is you're going to find yourself in a relationship and in marriage, and
Mhm.
then you're going to have a problem with that when the signs were there. Because to that point, when we talk about money, how many men have I talked to that has an issue with their wife shopping all the time?
Mhm.
I said, well, let me ask you this, brother. I mean, was this something that she did prior to that marriage?
Right.
Yeah, but I didn't think it was going to continue. Well, what made you think that it wasn't? You
Right.
know, just because, again, so here in his mind and his expectations, instead of a conversation, he expected her to change, and that wasn't to be because she felt, in her defense, that he was okay with it.
Mhm.
And so now he's complaining about issues with money, or
Mhm.
sometimes even if there was an issue with money, he just wanted her to stop. I'm like, no, bro, that's who you married.
Yeah.
And so, unless you're going to have this conversation, then let her be her and
Mhm.
just accept that that's what it is.
Yeah.
Well,
And
she wears clothes, says she has all these tags. Okay. And
mhm.
she's got all these shoes, 15 pairs of black shoes. And
And then some people think, well, shouldn't she get it by now that this is hurting us? You know what I mean? Like, no, you knew that she wasn't
you
one to
knew.
worry about the money and where it came from. She just always wanted what she wanted. You know what I'm saying? So,
Hmm.
so all of a sudden now he wants her to be like, well, dang, don't she see? No, that's who you married. And you have to decide, okay, are you going to take the lead on this process because you know she can't do real with this? Or are you going to sit there and complain about it?
Right.
or
Exactly.
or or not fix the problem because you knew that you thought all of a sudden because she's married she's going to all of a sudden not go out and buy a new bag every time a new one's released. You knew who that's who she was. So
Huh.
you have to take the lead and say, well, you know what, tell you what, I'm going to be in charge of all the money. I'm going to give you an allowance. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
And because I already know you ain't going to do right, and that's accepting. That's what it is.
Yeah.
That's simply what it is. That's what it is.
Exactly, and it's funny because it's even funnier when it's the money's not an issue. I mean, the man's making buku money. I'm talking guys who credit score is great, 7-figure earner. I'm looking at the house. I'm going over their finances, and I'm like, oh, man, where's the issue here? Okay, so we're gonna handle his debt, and we're gonna get you out of there another 7 years earlier. I said, but you good. You can just why don't you just go build another closet in the house, put a new addition to the house.
Right.
She's you're okay, but it's just something that he wanted and he felt that she should change. And I'm like, no, the chances of that happening, so no,
And that's
you know,
and I get caught up like that now being a single woman because I feel like when it comes to my lifestyle because I always had two incomes for my adult life. So as I get older my styles change and what I want changes. You know what I mean, like there's just like I wouldn't carry a coach now. You know what I'm saying, like real talk, right? So it's one of those things where I wanted to continue to evolve in that way. So I had to figure out a way, well, okay, how do I still get what I want? But now I'm only for the time being a one income. But I didn't want to
right,
change. I knew that shopping was my safe space, right? And I knew that I was a nurturer. And that was something else I want to talk about this time around. I knew that I was one of the people that's a nurturer. So in other words, we're going through seasons now. And I think that's what women sometimes need to understand when it comes to the way they view relationships, right? We all as women go through seasons, right? And so for most of us, this is going into that season where, it's starting to get cold, and you're like, okay, what am I going to do? So you think about that, but then at the same time, all you want to do is create something beautiful. So that's why at this particular time, when we're in that nurture season for some of us, we'll go out and redecorate our home, or we'll start thinking about babies on a different level, like whether it's a grandbaby or maybe I should adopt a baby, or you know what, I'm just gonna go get a dog. You know what I mean? It's like, they think about stuff like that. So everybody goes through that nurture season. And because I was thinking about it a couple of weeks ago, and I all of a sudden was looking at my house and I wanted to redecorate it. And so I was like, and it had to click for me, something that I had never really paid attention to before, that there was always a certain time. And I remember when my oldest son would leave to go to his dad's for the summertime, there was like that part in that summertime where all of a sudden, because again, it's just the summertime, I will all of a sudden feel that longing for another baby because my boys are 8 years apart. And so I would
Mm.
feel it. I would feel it like, oh, I want a baby. Oh, I want a baby. And so I remember going through that. And so right around the time that my son would come back, I wouldn't want, that feeling wouldn't be there anymore. Right. So it was like my nurturing. So that was always around that August, September, go through that summertime, then that August, September. And so I think sometimes women don't recognize that about themselves, right? That we all go through it a period of time. And we have to embrace that. And so we have to also look at that from a perspective of when we're dating, right? What is it about our feelings right now that's making us choose this person? Is it because this is the season where I'm an empty nester and I'm feeling this, or that is it your nurturing season and you just want something close? So you taking somebody that ain't right for you, but just to have somebody. So you have to understand all that about yourself
Oh
as
boy.
you date, right? You have to understand about yourself. You know,
Oh boy. Yeah. Men. And see, that's another thing, in the dating, as I speak to men and they're sharing with their apps and they're scrolling, I mean, it's a journey for men. And you're talking as a woman about seasons. And men hear this, but we just don't converse in those ways.
mhm,
So you're speaking to a man when she said, she wants another baby, and for her, this is the way they're feeling and their hormones or whatever. And in the man's mind, we're like, okay, how much is this damn thing going to cost? Because now, we only have 2 bedrooms, we only need a third and cribs. And so automatically, we're from the logic, we're calculating, even if we want it, but we're still thinking women in a different space than women are. If
mhm,
you are dating, and again, that's why these questions are, because I can't tell you how many times where women will change their mind where they say they want no more kids based on age, and then they change their mind 6 months, 8 months into the dating space when now they want a child. And so the
mhm,
man is furious because for men, for the most part, if this is where we're planting the flag, this is where it is.
mhm,
And so now you've gotten feelings tied up into it. We as men, we've got other plans, maybe plans of travel, plans of just building a business together, things of this nature. And now she's coming up into, you know, uh, John, I'm just in the season where, I'm just feeling, I really, I know I said it, but now I want a child. I've been feeling this way. And so now we feel our whole world crashing down because this is not what is placed. So these are questions that, of course, nothing is perfect. And so, but I'm just saying, just understand that. If you're in your 20s and you're dating, there's a chance that, yeah, she may not want a child, but chances are, based on who her friends are and the environment she's in, she may want another child. And that's another thing when you're in your late 40s and 50s. Although some men are dealing with some dating women in their 40s who still want to have, they still feel that they're still good enough for another child for whatever reason. That's a whole other discussion. But you're right. There are just these ways in which women describe their journey as a woman, that just be cognizant of how men may interpret it. And don't get upset if they don't see it how you see it, because we are just wired differently. We're different, and these are discussions that you have to have. So if you are, again, I remember hear the seasons. I remember hearing that so many women are talking about manifesting and things of this nature. Very few men will talk about that. For us, we're like, okay, what the hell really does that mean? What are we manifesting? What another BMW, another bigger house. What are we talking about here? And what is that really going to cost me? So it's really, really interesting as we talk about modern dating today and the way men are talking and the way women are talking in this space. So I hope that lended something to what you're saying. I'm reading here. Um, Ms. Thompson, Shanika, encourage for an interesting topic that circles my mind. Yes, I mean, is there? Oh, let me ask you this, Jessica, because um, is it? Do you find in the year of 2022, women are more optimistic concerning dating, or they're pessimistic in the space of dating in 2022 as we're closing? I mean, we're going into September. What has been your thought through this traveling the world of summer and the women's mindset concerning dating? Is there some sort of rising optimism, or there's still some thought of where the good men at, or where they at? What are your thoughts? I mean, what have you been hearing? Oh, can she hear me? I don't know if she can hear me. Uh-oh, I don't think she can hear me. Can you hear me, Yasheka? Uh-oh. I don't think she can. I think we have a technical challenge here. Now I can't hear you.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. I wasn't sure if you can hear me.
Yeah, I have to switch back and forth because of my signal, but
Okay.
in the comments in Facebook. And so Shamika, thank you so much for joining us. Just make sure you just go down just upon your comment and into the question. What had Ronnie said, what has been your experience? Because we definitely want to know. We definitely want to know the different experiences. And even if it hasn't been your personal experience, maybe some of your friend girls are telling you about their experience. So are they more optimistic about dating going into winter 2022 and then 2023? Or are they more pessimistic about it, saying, you know what, I'm just I quit. You know what I mean? Yeah, because I mean, I've heard. Um, she said it's been a lot of skepticism, Ronnie.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. And trust me, it's been that way on the men as well. And it's funny because when we look at the numbers again, we're men. I said, look, and fellas, there's more women than men, and then they want to try to break this down as to why it may not be as it appears. But just to the women that they're hoping, or that they were looking to date and have been on dates, they're looking at the dating apps, and so many of the men are just frustrated. And and I'm talking the men 45 and up. So this is where, and I'm talking about intention men. I'm not talking these men who's out here just because they're just because. I'm talking the men who are really, they're having challenges with the women and listing things that they are not going to do as opposed to what they are going to do in this dating space. They
Mhm.
have what they feel is this sense of entitlement of women. They feel that although they're happy for the women and their accomplishments, the way they express it is as if they are better than the men that are out here. And so, it comes to these kind of challenges. So, although the men haven't totally given up, they do feel frustrated because they feel within this space of social media, and the media, as we look at television and so much drama, it really, sometimes a lot of men feel that they're listening or dating women who, although they are older chronologically, they come across as very immature and selfish in a way, and they hear a lot about the self-love, which on the surface sounds good because you want to love oneself, but sometimes it comes across as if they're not opening themselves to love. It's still making them pay for their choices and bad experiences prior to, be it a marriage or be it relationships or whatever. So the men are still cautiously optimistic, but they're still optimistic nonetheless. So that's the way men are, the men that I've been talking to have been communicating it to. And of course, there will always be those who will just take it to way extreme, that there's no good men, women left, and all of this. And to that, I just don't have too long of conversations with them because, again, I truly believe there's still a lot of wonderful women out there and that are marriageable. So I'm
Yeah.
reading.
I mean, and I was just sitting here thinking about just all things in terms of dating and the whole honesty of it all. And then to Shamika's response about the skepticism, you know, I'm really going to go and do a whole roundup of what I've experienced this summer that will talk about the skepticism from the sides and why we are where we are right now and what I've discovered over these last 10 weeks of traveling. And it would be, and the thing about it is just so simple. It's just so simple. It is just so simple. People make the process hard. People make the process hard, but it is so simple. And so I'm going to do a whole roundup of that and just go really in tune about, you know, where we are and moving forward, because we can't keep doing the same things that we've been doing.
Okay.
And yeah, am I still here?
No, you're still there. You're still there.
Okay. We can't keep doing the same things that we've been doing. But yet, when you look up at the world, I hear women say that there's no men out here. And then I hear men say, where are the good women? And the thing about it is that there are so many men out here, right? Thanks to pardons and weed being legalized in some states now and stuff like that. It's a lot of black men that then got out of jail. They had a whole big plan with fires. They hit their first seven figures. You understand what I'm saying? Like, that is real talk. That is real talk. They know they did things the wrong way. I'm not saying that they completely healed. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. They still got work to do. But what I'm saying is that we're at the point where we'll shun our nose for whatever reason. Right. And I mean, as long as, I mean, if he ain't killed nobody now, I mean, you know, if he killed somebody, that's different. But I mean, you know, I'm just saying, if he just got caught up on a little weed charge, you know, something like that.
Right, right. Mm-hmm.
I'm telling you, because I'm on now. The generation that I'm in, we know where we come from. We know that people was just trying to figure it out. There were a lot of people that did stuff they ain't had no business doing. Like I remember, I went to my class reunion last weekend, and I remember talking to my classmate, and I said to that person, when they said to me where they had been, I said, I know you've been there. He said, oh, okay. I said, the difference between me and you is you got caught. That's it. That's the difference. That is the difference. Because I came from that environment. I know that life, whether it was me or it was with a dude I was with. But the difference between me and you is that you got caught and I didn't. And I had sense enough to bail out when I could and leave and go to my behind to the army. That's the only difference. That's the only difference. So, but that's where we are now. We're there now. We're on the other side of that bull crap. We should be anyway. Now, if you still trying to peddle in that, then yes, you know, hey, whatever.
Yeah.
But if you understand that we on the other side of that now, come on now, what we doing? What we doing? Because like you said a little while before, you know, we come full circle and it's looking like, well, dang, okay, I'm glad I'm healthy enough. I'm glad I'm this enough because now my mama, my daddy, my people, whoever need me. And I can do that. And by the grace of God, because you know they all been praying for y'all one way or the other, right? By the grace of God, you able to be in a position. And so women have to look at that and say, hey, wait a minute. And then even when it comes to the women with these babies and stuff, come on now, we all been through it. He got about 4 baby mamas too, but he want to judge his sister that got two baby daddies. Like, what we talking about? You ain't 20 no more. It's gonna be hard for you to get a 40-some-year-old woman that ain't got no kids. You understand what I'm saying? I ain't saying they got to be school. I mean, still, you know, going to school, but it's gonna be hard to get that. So those standards that you had before you went to the pen, those ain't the standards no more. You got to wake up. You got to figure out where we at now. I had a guy that talked to me. I remember talking to this guy. He had went to jail. And we were just talking, chit-chat on the phone. And he said to me, you know what? I don't really like dating too many women that I know they've been with somebody else. I said, what? I was like, Joker, what you say? I'm like, I'm 47, 48 years of age. You stuck back when you went to jail and you was dating 20-something year olds. And when you might have been able to to maybe find one that only had been with one, or maybe three, but only told you one. But a lot has happened, dog. You can't live back in that mindset. But that's where he was at in that area. And I knew that that was the part of him that had not healed, that had not understood life. Because I'm like, dog, I didn't have two husbands at the minimum. You understand what I'm saying? So it would be crazy of you to believe that my number count at least three, because the guy that took my virginity ain't one of the guys I married. So my body count at least three. So that was that was a real conversation. That's the thing about it. I'm not telling you what I heard. I'm telling you what I know, because I put myself out here in these streets to get this good information for y'all. You know what I'm saying? But we'll get caught up in this ego of ours. Oh, that's a whole nother topic. But you know where I'm going with this, Ronnie.
Yes, I know, and that will be saved for another, because that is a whole conversation. Even as I speak to men, I've spoken. Let's just say, in this past month, I've covered so many different conversations with men. For those that are, and I'm talking the youngest being 35, 37, but usually within the 40s and 50s, and the whole dating younger conversations. And then the mindset of certain men that are in their 40s or 50s, they're still trying to live their life as if in their 20s. This kind of, you're right. And they're stuck in this time frame. And I'm going, brother, and expecting the women that they want to date to be there as well. And, they're going to stick to their guns. And, part of the reason why they're still there is because they had some form of success. There's some women who validate them. And to those women, I'm saying, leave those men alone. leave those men alone. Leave those men alone. But yes, there are a section of men that are still living in a very unrealistic space when it comes to this. And when I go hard on the women about repeating a pattern of the type of men that you're going after, which is why you're still getting results, it's, there are those men who are in this space too, because they still go into this, still trying to change a woman. So they want the refined woman, but they still want her on this street hood level. And I'm like, no, what you're looking for is over there. And then you're not getting the success because she's done. Listen, brother, how old are you now? Are you still dressing only this way? Are you still talking only this way?
Ronnie, let me cut you off. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I want you to hold your thought. I want you to come back to it, but I want to address this comment that Shamika put in the comments.
Absolutely.
And what she said was, I would like to believe what I'm told, so there's no room for second guessing, regardless of the status. And this is what I want to say to Shamika. What happens is she leads with that in a relationship when she's dating. In other words, when she's in a relationship with somebody, it's like she's waiting for them to show up differently than what they said they was going to show up. And so because of that, she connects herself to people who shouldn't be connected to them, because if you have to lead a relationship with that means that you're not looking at everything else that the relationship can offer, which means that you're passing up the good in people when that should be what you're looking for. In other words, because remember, we attract who we are. We attract who we are. So you want to know that you're different by saying, okay, my calibration is I'm gonna do exactly what I say. I'm gonna do exactly what I say. I'm gonna do exactly what I say. I'm gonna do exactly what I say, hoping that person is gonna do exactly what they say, because that's what you're leading with. You're trying to be that person. And so because of that, you attract those people. So if you leave that mindset alone and leave with the intention of, let me see the beauty in people, period, not just if they're going to hurt me or tell me a lie, because you've been deceived or been told lies so many times. That's a lot of trauma from childhood and people not showing you or doing what they said they was going to do. And I had to recognize that when I was in my late 30s, early 40s with my own father. You know what I mean? I got to the point where I looked at men like, okay, you know what? You ain't do what you said it's going to do. I'm out. because that was a trauma for me. Because as a child growing up with a father not in the household, I remember he would call me and say, I'm going to come see you, or I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And then he would never do it. So then I became, okay, you know what? I ain't going to believe it. They're going to disappoint me. And so whatever. So we're looking for that. We're leading with that trauma. So you know what I'm saying? So we're leading with that trauma. But if we put that out there and say, okay, what is it that I really want? What is it that I really want? What is it that I really need? What is it that I think that I know I deserve? And those are the things that you look for in people. Don't look in the disappointment, because some people ain't healed. And if they're not healed, you can't make them heal. You have to let them go to go do the work so that they can go do the work, rather. You got to let them go. Sometimes we take a square peg and we want it to fit in a round hole because we don't want to try nothing new. This is why I say when it's about dating and the women that I talk to, it's not about dating to get to a husband. It's dating with intentions to understand, why do you do what you do? Why do you attract who you attract? What are we doing? It's bigger than just dating. The goal is dating, but we need to make sure we don't keep making these same mistakes time after time. And then if we are, understanding why and move forward with it. Because you have to come to a place, okay, either I am, because we have to be honest about who we are. Either this is who I am or this is who I'm not. So if I'm this person that say, okay, well, you know what, as long as he don't do this and that and the third, that's who you are. Stop trying to be something not. That's who you are. If that's something that you are okay with, then say it and don't worry about what nobody else say, but you can't expect that person to change because they're not. So it's either take them as they are or leave them where they are. That's it.
No, I agree. I mean, listen, if there's anything that I do believe in, well, first of all, before I even go there, this is all the more reason to reach out to the artist of dating, Yasheka J. Foster. And you can find her at datingdiscussions.com. If you've learned anything, she knows what the hell she's talking about. I do believe in the power of change, redemption, and all that. Now, again, we all want to do that with limits, but understand something. That change may happen after you, or they may not change. But where you are, she says, at that point, if this is who it is, don't try to. Now you'll hear men, and men are famous for saying this. Oh, she changed me, and I'm like, no, she inspired you for that change. I said, brother, that's all you. I said, so you either going to do it or not, because I can give you stories of women who are exactly that you asked for, and you were still going out there and you got 5 side chicks. So then is that she did something wrong? And again, they try to justify that one thing out of the 50 things that she's done is wonderfully as a justification for, no, that's you. You said you had been a change man, and you're not. You're not.
And
You're
then
not who you say you are.
while he's going through that process,
Yeah.
she can't get mad at him because he's not doing it at her pace. She can't.
Exactly. That's the other part. That part.
She's mad at him because he's not doing it at her pace. And we get so confused about it. Be like, I didn't tell why he still, listen, you knew who he was and you chose to accept it because you thought you could make him change at your pace. You can't.
Ooh, boy. That's hard. And that's so hard that men and women go through. Yeah. When it, and that's, they want them to change on their schedule. They want to be who they're on their schedule. I'm like, no, you're going to find yourself. No. No. I'm telling you, no. I'm not, and no, I mean, if you hear the passion in Yasheka's voice, she's really coming from a place of knowledge here, and of course experience. I mean, it's just what it is, and again, and see, men, we get into such heated debates because some of us, or being that, if you put it down good enough, or you spend enough money, and if you do whatever, and you give her all of this, then she's going to be this person. And I'm like, and when she's not, I'm like, well, what in the hell gave you any indication that what you said was that you have the solution for her being what you wanted to be? One from day one, date number one. She told you this is what it is. And then date number 2, 3, 15, she showed you. But for some reason, men in their mind, just give it time. It's all about timing. I'm again, once I find that kind of way to maneuver in there, I got it. And I'm going to flip the switch and she's going to be that woman. And I'm like, okay, brother. And here you are in divorce court about to pay alimony, but it's all her fault, right? Okay. All right. Good luck. Good luck with that mindset.
And one thing I always say before we round up, Malita, is one little more tidbit, just about me and my realization about my life. So my brother is someone that keeps me grounded. He keeps me grounded with the world, because I'll put my head in the clouds sometime and I forget that people are still out there living. Okay. And my first husband was like 6'3". My second husband was like 5'10". So when I was talking to my brother one day about the men in my life, he says to me, Yasheka, your men have always been short. I said, well, I can't count the people that I went to school with. He said, Yasheka, I see all them jokers, all of them still short, right? So when he said that to me, I was like, so at what point did I start saying I want a tall man? Was it when I got with my first husband? So in other words, I say all that to say this, to not go. I had to come to a realization, because in my life, in these last, I would say 10 years, when it came to a guy that was under 6 foot, I was already swiping left on him. He wasn't even up for consideration. You understand what I'm saying? So now here's the thing. I can date a tall man, but what I'm saying is that where did I get the audacity to all of a sudden say, why am I dating a short man? That, because in my mind, I want, when I put on my heels, for me to look like Carrie Upshaw in Sex in the City, and so I can fling my leg up. That was my shit. You understand? That was my shit. So now I'm trying to make sure that I'm 5'7", I'm 5'10" in heels, maybe 5'11" if it's some good boots. So I'm looking for dudes that's over 6'1", 6'2", because I want him to make me feel small and short. And I'm just like, girl, but my brother say, like, because in other words, I was like, well, if he's 6 foot, I don't want to date him. He like, you always did short dudes. I was like, no, I do. My second husband was 5'10". He was like, but Yasheka, even before your first husband, your dudes before that was short. I was like, well, you can't count them because we were still kids. He said they still short. Incomparable. You know,
women in the you can't count this. Man, we laugh at that. We're like, women, you can't. Yeah, well, we're counting. Men count it.
I mean, and the thing about it is that we all have those realizations. In other words, I've accepted the fact that I do see something in dudes that's not necessarily 6 foot, 6'1". But there was a time in my life where I was automatically just like, no. You know what I'm saying? Like I was. And I was like looking at my second husband, like, how did I even marry you? You only 5'10". You know what I'm saying? Like that was a thing for me. Like, I wouldn't even wear certain shoes because I didn't want to be taller than him. I mean, it was. I remember that. I remember that shit. I remember it. You know what I'm saying? Because I was like, damn, I'm making him fit into something that I want him to fit into something that I knew going into it. But for whatever reason, it was my shit that I had to heal from. You understand what I'm saying? Because I've always had this thing about being the tallest one in the class and all this kind of shit. It was some shit that I had to heal from. You understand what I'm saying? But I mean, that's what it looks like to do the work. That's what it looks like to do the work. That's what it looks like to get on the other side of this and not be in denial about who you are. Like that's what it looks like.
Shanika, let me take a moment to thank you for sharing. Thank you, Shanika. I mean, we really appreciate it. Yeah, Shamika, thank you for sharing. I mean, again, this is a space where we're grown as adults here, so we gonna say what we're gonna say and how we're gonna say, but just know it's said with intentional and caring and for your success and his success in dating.
Absolutely. So, Ronnie, we're gonna go ahead and wrap this thing up. This, and I mean, we're gonna have to do a part 2 to this summer because I know that we got enough energy. Because I know that I still have a lot to talk about my summer on this platform, not just on my own personal platform, but I have a lot to talk about. What I've experienced and what I saw, and and how we can move forward in all this, you know. And yeah, and I definitely want to share it on all of the platforms so that people can say, you know what, she had her ear to the ground. I've had my ear to the ground for a while. Like I'm not just pretending to be who I am. I'm not just, you know, looking at life and saying, well, you know what, I just want somebody to pay me. No, it's not like that. Like I am my what I am and who I am. It's like it's deep. It's real discernment. You know what I mean? It's real discernment. And so I don't know if any of you, if anybody on this platform have already heard me say that before, but that's what it is. So what I when I say something to somebody, it is from the gut. It is from within. It is from the things that I hear or feel from wherever it comes from. You know, I like to consider it to be my grandmother's. But so what I'm saying to you, trust me. I know it. I know it because I'm not just seeing what you hearing what you're telling me. I'm feeling your energy. I'm feeling all the energy around you. So if you want to, work with me and you want some more what I'm dishing out, Ronnie, go ahead and give them all the links for our platform.
Yes, you can go to datingdiscussions.com, and for replays of this as other. We've got over 50 different episodes. And subscribe, share, and hit the notification bell so that we can grow this channel and share. Also, you see the IG, yeah, Ronnie and Yasheka. You also go to Yasheka Foster, we Artists of Dating. You can also go to Dating Discussions Live, datingdiscussionspodcast.com. All of that. We are here. And from that, you have the email, RonnieandYasheka@gmail.com. But if you go to datingdiscussions.com, you'll see a bio of Yasheka as well as myself. And again, we're not Johnny come lately in this space, from professional and more importantly, personal experiences. So trust me, we still have some things we want to unleash on you in terms of, again, we're just not, again, like with everyone with a cell phone and microphone, and not downing anybody else, because that's not the energy that we're on. But when I'm telling you, Yasheka knows what the hell she's talking about. If what you heard today, that's just a nano bit of experience of what she has. And so, Shamika, I hope that you take the time to reach out to her. And to Jay, if there's anything that I could help you with, or add some direction or nuance to what you're doing in this dating space, feel free to reach out to me, or reach out to Yasheka. Again, for me, this is bigger than me. This is bigger than Ronnie Walker. And knowing that above all else, we want you to succeed in this new age of dating, because it definitely is a new age of dating. And so we want to make sure that we provide you with the equipment, the thoughts, the speech, communication, the mindset it takes to effectively date in this space, as Yasheka and I are experienced as well. And that is pretty much it. So I thank you for your input and all of that. And thank you for your support as well.
All right. Make sure you follow us on IG, Facebook, and on YouTube.
Yes, on Facebook as well.
Yasheka Dating Discussions. And share the video. I know some of your friends on your list needs to hear this. And just let us know, and make sure you share our contact information. Thank you so much. We'll see you guys next time. Bye.
Next time. Take care now. Bye-bye.